welcome back to my channel. It's been a while. I've been out on the road for about 5 months, traveling and working seasonally and visiting friends. So I haven't been able to keep up with this channel and do any book reviews. I haven't read as much either, but I stopped wanting to do the book reviews. And now if I was to go back to talk about them, I probably wouldn't even be able to remember. I think the last one I reviewed was the Hell's Angels by Hunter S. Thompson. And probably not surprisingly, I got a lot of views on that one and some comments because, you know, I said I didn't like it. So, but it is what it is. And then I think the book after that I read was Edith Wharton's Age of Innocence. And then I just recently watched Martin Scorsese's movie based on this with Michelle Pfeiffer and Daniel Day-Lewis. That's right. And Winona Ryder. I probably didn't care for the movie, actually. The book was better. Anyway, this is not a book review for that. This is a video on a haul of books from my road trip. So a road trip book haul. So like I said, I've been on the road for 5 months. And so these are just the books that I've gotten along the way, either at thrift stores or the free libraries or, yeah, thrift stores, I think is probably most of them. So I'm just going to go through the books that I've gotten in the past 5 months, starting with this bag. So on my way out of town, I stopped in Knoxville to go to Mckay's Books. It's a huge store. They have different places in Tennessee, I believe in Nashville and maybe Chattanooga as well. And I stopped there because I usually can find some used books there for a pretty good price. So the first one I found is Bear in the Back Seat, number 2. So I have already read the first book that he wrote, and it was okay. The stories are really interesting, but the writing is, he's just not a writer. He was a backcountry, you know, wildlife, or not backcountry, he was a wildlife ranger in the Smoky Mountains National Park. So I got this at Mckay's. It was autographed by the author, and I just decided to pick it up, and I did end up reading that this summer. Another book I picked up is Joanna Macy's Widening Circles. I'd never heard of, and it still has the price. So it was $1.50 there at Mckay's. So I've never heard of this book, but I have heard of Joanna Macy. I've read a couple other of her books when I was in grad school. So I picked that up because I thought it would be interesting since I like her as an author. Another book I found was this Franklin Library of Candide by Voltaire. And it was $8. So, you know, I'm always on the hunt for, actually, is it Franklin Library? Yeah, it's Franklin Library. So I'm always on the hunt for nice leather-bound books to go in my bookcase. And this was actually one of my favorite classics that I've read. I couldn't tell you what it's about because I don't really remember it, but I picked that up and I thought that was a good price, $8. The last book I got at Mckay's is Yes, We Still Can by Dan Pfeiffer. And that was $3. So I picked that up because I actually listened to him on a podcast called Pod Save America. He used to work in the Obama administration as, I think he was like something with the press secretary, maybe. I can't totally remember, but he's written a couple books since working there, and I picked it up since it was a good price and I wanted to check it out. So that was exciting to find, you know, hardback, pretty new condition. So that was pretty cool to find. All right, the other bag is huge. And these are books. I'll just explain where I got them. Oh, so, okay. So this one is On the Other Side of Freedom by DeRay McKesson. He's another one from that same podcast, Crooked Media. They have Pod Save the People, and he's a host on that. And he actually came to be known, I guess, from his activism in Ferguson. And so I listened to their podcast all the time and knew he had wrote this book, and saw it at the thrift store in New York City when I was there. It went to the Housing Works bookstore, thrift store, and I got this for $3, I believe, because I think they said everything was half off. So there's a price tag that says $6, so I think that was probably $3. And I ended up reading that this summer as well. Very interesting. You know, I liked it. I find that the chapters where he was a lot more personal, sharing his personal experience, were more impactful than other chapters, but highly recommend that one. This one is Black Mutiny, about the revolt on the schooner Amistad. And I had recently been wanting to check out that movie, Amistad. I don't think I ever saw it because it's an older movie. And then I was out on Long Island near Montauk, and I think I read out there that it was off that coast where this happened. Yeah. So I think I picked this up at the Goodwill bins there in New York City. So it was probably, I don't know, 50 cents maybe. I also got this book at the Goodwill bins in New York City. And this is, you know, I never heard of this one either, but, you know, on the back where it says like the genre, it says nature science, and it says in the Atlantic Passage, I'm attracted to anything with water and nature stuff. So I was like, I'll pick it up and check it out. So I don't really know anything else about it. Oh, going back to that Housing Works bookstore in New York City, I also found this, Levels of the Game by John Mcphee. And this is actually really exciting. You know, seeing it on the bookshelf, I picked it up just because it said John Mcphee, because I know that author. I've read at least one of his books, other books, and I have other ones of his. And I only know him as like an environmental writer, really. So I picked it up and looked at it, and I was like, okay, it's tennis balls. And so I looked at the back cover and was reading that it's a narrative of the tennis match played by Arthur Ashe and Clark Graebner at Forest Hills. And I immediately was like, oh, that's awesome, because I just worked the US Open and was around Arthur Ashe Stadium. So I was like, I have to get that. That's a sign. And I ended up reading it while I was still in New York, and I thought it was really interesting. Obviously it's from back in the 60s, I guess. Anyway, so I found that it was interesting going between like narrating the tennis match and then going into their lives and speaking more about that. So I learned more about Arthur Ashe, and, you know, as a fan of tennis, it was interesting. You know, if you don't know tennis, it would be probably boring because you wouldn't understand, you know, the scoring and such. But so that was kind of interesting to find. Also at that same Housing Works bookstore, I picked up this, George Orwell, Road to Wigan Pier. I don't know. Obviously George Orwell is a classic author. I've read several of his other books. I had never heard of this one before. Obviously the cover is off, but that's okay. I will just tape it. And yeah, I just picked it up to go with the rest of my Orwell collection. And I still have this receipt in here, I guess, from the bookstore. So yeah. Spent about $15 on those 3 books. So yeah. This book was kind of exciting to find, James Baldwin's The Fire Next Time, because I found this at a free library, little stand right outside the apartment in Astoria that I was house and pet sitting for. And this was on my list to read. You know, I had never really grew up hearing about James Baldwin until recently, and I had never read any of his work. I still have his If Beale Street Could Talk. I think is the name. I might have gotten that wrong. And that's on my list to check out. So this one I found, and that was really exciting. And I did read this already. I think it was 2 different pieces. One was a letter to his nephew. Okay. Letter to my nephew. And I thought that really reminded me of Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me that I read earlier this year, which was a letter to his son. So I found that to be pretty similar. And then the other story in here was him talking about just, I think his lived experiences as a Black man in the country. So it was pretty interesting. So I recommend that one. I picked this one up at the Goodwill bins in New York City. Kurt Vonnegut's Breakfast of Champions. I have read this before. Oh, I've got some postcards in there. Forgot I put those in there. I've read that before. Couldn't tell you what it was about because it's been many years. But I picked this up because of the edition that this was. This is one of the earlier copies. And I just thought it might be valuable. I'll have to look into it. This one was published in 1973. So I might keep this version and donate the other one that I have, or I might try to list this to sell. I'm not sure, but okay. The next book I found, this was on my list, Women Who Run with the Wolves. This is a honker of a book. This is pretty big. And I found this at a thrift store in Maine, and this was on my list. I don't know how I originally heard of it. It was just probably recommended somewhere along the way. It's Myths and Stories of the Wild Woman Archetype. So thought that sounded interesting. Who knows when I'll get to that because it's pretty big. This one, Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I don't know anything about it. Obviously, I've heard of this author before. Never read her stuff before. But this I found in one of the free libraries by the apartment I was at in Astoria. So that was exciting to find because I was like, that's a pretty new book. I think it probably just came out 2020. So that's nice. Oh, this one is Billie Jean King's new book, All In. I think that came out this year. And funny story with this, I bought this and other copies in New York City to be set design for when I was working at the US Open with ESPN. So at the end of the tournament, my boss said I could take it. So I took one of them. Too bad I wasn't able to get it signed by Billie Jean King. That would have been awesome. But so that's pretty cool. And the last book is actually written by my friend, Dee Dee Presser, who I work with at the Open. And this is just a book that she wrote, I think self-published on Amazon, called Shipwrecked. And I asked her to bring me a copy since I'm a big reader, and I asked her to sign it for me. She's got a lot of great stories. She's traveled all over the world, and this is about her experience working with a cruise ship. So I haven't gotten to read that yet, but that's going to be fun to check out. So that's all the books that I got this summer on my road trip. I have gotten other books through Paperback Swap that I'll do in another haul in a little bit, but I wanted to do that so I can put them back in my shelves now. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video and got some ideas for some books to check out. And until next time, keep reading.